Hi, and welcome to Member Splash. Today we're going to talk about the new release of the reservation system, which we're referring to as version 2. It's a really substantial upgrade over what we rolled out to support social distancing last year in 2020. So let's take a look at some of the major changes associated with the new reservation tool. So what's new with the reservations version 2? First and foremost is facility groups, which really allow for reservation rules to apply globally across a group. In version 1, if you built 4 separate lap lanes, each had its individual set of reservation limits. Again, remember, reservation limits designed to allow for more availability for more members and a little more fairness in the availability of things like lap lanes. So the whole idea is that with those as separate and distinct reservation rules, an individual member could kind of cheat the system and say, well, look, I can book time on lap lane 1, and then later in the day, lap lane 2, lap lane 3, lap lane 4. As long as those 4 lap lanes weren't in a group, and we didn't have that capability, it really would allow people to, again, sort of cheat the system. So the idea with group rules is that you can establish those reservation limits that apply across the entire group. So if you want your members to be able to swim in a lap lane for an hour each day, you can do that, and it can apply across all lap lanes. So they couldn't book multiple swimming sessions across multiple lanes. Again, the idea of fairness and availability to all members is really what we have in mind. The group view of the calendar is also new. So what you will see for a group is instead of having to shop on tennis court 1 for availability and then look at court 2 and then look at court 3, you can on an individual day look at the availability of time on the court across the entire day across all 4 courts that you have. The other thing is that we now support both flexible and defined reservation time blocks. What that really means is that if you still need to enforce social distancing or somehow limit the total number of people in the pool, for example, at any one time, you can still have defined time blocks, say 2 or 3 hour blocks of time that your members can book. Let's say you open at noon, you may have a noon to 3 time block. From 3 to 3:30, it's an unreservable block that allows that group of people to leave for you to do any cleanup, and then for the next group of people to come in. That's a defined time block. But flexible blocks allow for more flexible scheduling on the part of your members. The classic example here is for tennis courts. One member may choose to play for 45 minutes, where another family says, we want to play for an hour and a half. Flexible scheduling allows them to select rather than have a predefined block. So they're going to select the exact start and end times for their tennis court. So much more flexibility in terms of the availability of the various facilities. We also have the ability for single account or family booking or multi-account booking available. Again, depending on your needs, but certainly in the case of tennis, many people don't really just want to play tennis with their own family members. They want to play somebody else who belongs to the club. So allowing for a multi-account booking means that I could book a time from noon until 1:30 and then make sure my friend Tom knows, go and book it. I've already got it reserved. Just pick that same time on court 2, and we'll have that time reserved for us to play. The other thing is we now have the support of event overrides of a schedule. So you can define schedules for your groups or individual facilities within the group. But then if there is a tennis clinic or a swim meet, you can put an event on the calendar that will override your members' ability to make any reservations on your facilities at those times. So pretty substantial upgrades to the capability of the reservation system. Let's take a look now at how you can actually build a facility group and build a calendar with some of the new reservation capabilities in place. All right, I've logged in as an administrator. Let's build a facility. And in this case, we're going to build our lap lanes for our members. So I'm logged in as an administrator. As I said, let's go over to the top menu to reservations, and facilities is where you build your facility groups and build your calendars and build your rules. So in this case, you can obviously, if you have existing groups, you could go and edit those. But in this case, we're adding a new group called lap lanes. I click Add Facility Group. Lap lanes is the name. And this is where you establish the rules associated with the group. So these are the overriding rules for each of the subsequent lanes that will build underneath the facility group. So first of all, you can always use the visibility on or off button. So I recommend during the facility build, to keep from any surprises appearing, people booking while you're not quite ready, is to put that into not visible mode and then turn it on when you're done building. So in this case, a couple of things that you want to start off with. So first is under group rules. Reservation periods represents how far into the future you're going to allow your members to book a lap lane. And in this case, we've heard from a lot of our clubs that allowing members to book too far into the future ultimately results in lots of no-shows. So you can define how far into the future that your members are going to be able to book a lap lane. In this case, we're going to set it at about 2 weeks. So duration, 2, time period, weeks. So they'll be able to go to the calendar at any time and see 14 days into the future, but no further. Anything beyond that will be grayed out. The other thing is the reservation limits, and these are the limits that will apply to the entire facility group. So this is where the big change is as far as the reservation capability. As I mentioned before, each lap lane in the past would have had its own rules regarding booking limitations. Now these rules apply across all lanes. So if you're trying to limit your members to just one lap lane per day per person, you can now do that, whereas in the previous version of the reservation tool, they could get around the rules by booking time in lane 1 and then going to lane 2 and then to lane 3 and so on. So in this case, let's put in some reservation limits. We're going to allow our members to have 1 reservation per day per member. And we're going to limit them to, hey, what the heck? I'm not seeing too much demand on the lap lane, so I'm going to say you can have 1 reservation a day up to 7 times per week per member. At this point, we're ready to add the schedule, and this might be simple enough. Presumably, for a lot of clubs, when your pool opens, so do your lap lanes. So this may mirror exactly what your pool hours are. In the case of my pretend pool, I open at 11 o'clock every day. So all I need to do is drop the beginning block and then drag it down to the duration that I want the lap lanes to be available. We're open until 9. One of the nice things that we've added is the ability, rather than repeat that procedure for each day, is to simply do copy and paste. So I'm just going through the process of repeating that because my pool hours are the same every day. That makes life a lot simpler. I nearly forgot, but when can people begin to make reservations in your lap lanes? So this simply brings up the calendar view. Let's go ahead and start this in a couple of days. Make sure to click OK. What's the end date? For a lot of clubs, the end date is probably around Labor Day. So let's take September the 5th as our last day. Click OK. And click Add to add this as the main schedule for all of your lap lanes. The next step now is to define the individual lanes. At this point, we could provide different schedules for each of the individual lanes. They don't have to adhere to the rules for the group. But in this case, they are going to be using the exact same rules as the whole group. So I don't need to build individual schedules. So this is going to be really easy. So I'm just going to click Create. And now we have created our new facility group called Lap Lanes. And now we need to define the individual lanes that are part of this group. So I'm going to simply click Add Facility. And in this case, let me give it a really unusual name. Lap Lane 1. Is it visible to members? Not yet. Maximum capacity. This is important to include. Some clubs will allow members to share a lane, but in my case, I have enough lanes, I think, that I can just limit it to one person per lane. What's the maximum reservation length that I want to define for this lane number 1? I want to set it at 1 hour and 0 minutes. Single account per time slot doesn't really come into play since only one person at a time can book this. This ends up being a little more relevant in the case of booking things like tennis courts, where more than one family would want to book at the same time to compete against each other. So in this case, single account per time slot, we don't need to really do anything with that. But Timeslots Enabled, this is where you get to the point of being able to decide, do I want predefined time blocks that my members choose from, or do I want a flexible time block that allows my members to select their own times? I'm going to leave this in that flexible mode, so time slots are disabled. You could add a specific schedule, but keep in mind, again, we have an overriding schedule for all of my lap lanes. I really don't need an individual schedule. So I'm just going to click Cancel. At this point, I click Create, and we now have a lap lane that can be reserved by our members. Now, moving along, we're going to have 4 lap lanes. All you need to do is click Clone, and we're going to call this Lap Lane 2. I don't need to make any other changes. Again, all the same rules apply. I click Create. We're going to clone that. Lap Lane 3, Lap Lane 3. Click Create. We're going to clone it one more time for our last lap lane. Lap Lane 4. All the same rules apply. Click Create. At this point, we're just about ready to go, but remember, I had turned off the visibility to members on all of the facilities. It's a little bit of a pain at this point, but if you're taking your time and you don't want any surprises, it's not a bad idea. But at this point, I would go back into the edit mode and say, yes, it's now going to be visible to my members. Click Update, and I just repeat that for each of the lanes. No longer hidden, update, no longer hidden, and update, and now lane 1. Update. Now remember, I still have the group as hidden, so we need to go and edit the group as well. So that was all at the individual lane level, and I can edit the group going right here. In this case, I'm making that visible, and click Update. You have now built a lap lane calendar in less than 10 minutes for all of your members to be able to book lap lanes through the duration of the season. Now, one other thing that I want to note as a substantial improvement to the reservation system in this version 2, which is, we understand from a lot of clubs that they had, we'll just say, sometimes they would have issues saying, well, wait a minute, how do we keep people from booking times when the pool is closed? By that, I mean, Saturday morning, there's a swim meet, and it's going to go from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. How do we keep people from booking? Well, we have a new feature under reservations called Programs and Events. So let me show you how this works. Right now, we have no events listed under lap lanes, but I know that in a week from Saturday that we're going to have a home meet at our pool. So I click the plus sign to add an event. In this case, the name of the event is Swim Meet. You can put a description if you need to have any more information. But which of the facilities are impacted within this group? Well, I'm telling you, we're going to need all of our lap lanes and the main pool. So I'm indicating that all of those are affected. What is the start and end time? So recall that we're starting up at 10 a.m. and we are ending at 2 p.m. So I indicate the start and stop times, and I indicate the day of the week. In this case, it's a Saturday. I click on start date. It's the 19th, and it is only on the 19th. I click OK. So start and end date are both June 19th. Click OK, and click Create. So now we've just set aside all of those lanes as not reservable for the 19th of June because of our swim meet. So when members go to look to book times, they won't see anything until after 2 p.m. on that particular date. So that makes life a lot easier from the perspective of special events and activities, clinics, whatever else might be happening at the pool that you need to set aside time for. As you could also see, it could be applied to an individual lane. So if there were a special activity in a given lane, perhaps adult private lessons, you could do the same sort of thing and set aside that lane so that it wouldn't be available at specific times. Okay, that's a quick overview from the administrative perspective on how to build your reservation calendar. In the next section, we'll take a look at what does it look like from the member perspective to book a reservation? What does it look like from the admin perspective as well? Okay, now that we've built the lap lanes, let's see what it looks like when your members decide they want to actually book a lap lane. So we're logged into the Taylor Family Portal, their account, and they simply need to go to the Reservations tab, and they have both My Reservations and Make Reservation. Remember, My Reservations allows your members, not you as administrators, to go in and make any adjustments to upcoming reservations that the family already has, either to change the reservations or to cancel them altogether. In this case, though, Mom and Dad plan to make reservations for lap lanes tomorrow. All right, so step one is to locate the correct facility group, and you may have defined multiple. In this case, there's a drop down. So are they interested in lap lane, main pool, picnic tables, tennis courts? In this case, as we've said, they're looking for lap lane swimming, and they're looking for tomorrow. It's a daily schedule, so it's always easy for them to see availability across all the lap lanes. That's one of the substantial improvements to the reservation system since the first release. So let's look at tomorrow and see what's available for lap lanes. When the family logs in, they're going to be able to see everything that's already booked and everything that's still available. So if Clark and Laura would like to swim first thing, pool opens at 11, they can pick lap lanes 3 and 4 and swim side by side. So let's start by selecting the time block, starting at 11 and going for 1 hour until noon. Remember, we define the maximum length of time that they could book. This is configurable. So if you need to allow your members more time or you need to constrain them more, that's totally up to you. In this case, 11 to 12, it's for Laura. She would like to receive an email confirmation of her booking. Click Book It. And she's got a lap lane reserve for tomorrow from 11 to 12. Now, Clark would also like to swim. We're still logged into that family account, so I click on lap lane 4. He's going to swim an hour as well, from 11 to 12. It's for Clark. He's not looking for an email, so we simply click Book It. And he now has a lap lane booked from 11 to 12 tomorrow, lap lane 4. So it's as simple as that. So the idea is that you have established the rules, you establish the schedule, and you make it easy for your members to be able to book times at the pool. That's pretty much the summary for what it takes for your members to be able to book times at the pool. Let's switch back now and take a look at how things look again from the administrative side at the front desk check-in and front desk operations relative to reservations. All right, we're back in admin mode and on the back end of the system. And let's look at a couple of more things relative to the reservation system. And then we're going to check in the Taylor family who have reserved their lap lanes. So under reservations, you'll see a number of things. Facilities, obviously, is where we built the facilities and the associated rules. Reservations is a place where you as an administrator can go in and see any and all upcoming reservations, or you could look at reservations from the past. In this case, it defaults to the current day, but you can always look at a date range. In this case, maybe I want to look at the, I don't know, let's look to the end of the week, and this will show all reservations that we have booked over the next couple of days. At this point, you've got a couple of options. One is if you simply want a report of this information, you can download via CSV, bring that into Excel or Google Sheets to sort this information if you're looking for particulars about who's making reservations and when and how often, for example. The other thing, of course, from the administrative perspective is you will see the Manage button, which allows you to go in and cancel reservations, change reservations, do whatever needs to be done. So again, these aren't only things that your members can do. You can do them on their behalf, but obviously we're trying to get you out of the business of busy work. So in this case, we could cancel this reservation, but let's don't do that. I'm just going to close this window. In addition, there's also the calendar. This is the area that allows you as an administrator to book a reservation on behalf of one of your members. So if you really require a reservation to be in place for someone to use the lap lane, you could book a reservation for them for today or for tomorrow, the next day. But if somebody simply appears and says, is there an available lap lane right now? Might I be able to book that? Absolutely. So you simply go to the available spot, click on it, choose which family it is that's looking to make a reservation at that particular time, click Add, note who from that family is going to be using the pool at that time. It's Richard, and he's going to be there from 7 until 8, and click Book It. So you've just made a reservation on behalf of one of your members. Again, that's only in the case where there's a need to do that and they haven't done it themselves. So I'm going to click OK. Those are a couple of the other spots associated with what you can do. Programs and events we already talked about. That's for setting aside specific dates and times for events so that reservations can't be made at those times. But now let's take a look at how things are represented at front desk at the check-in. In this case, we'll go to check-in. And recall that the Taylor family had made reservations for lap lanes. So let's look for the Taylors. We're going to check them in. I start typing with the letter T. All families with the letter T show up, but we know it's Laura and her family. I click on one family member, and their entire account shows up. In this case, we know now that Laura has a lap lane 1 reservation from 7 to 8, and Clark has a lap lane reservation from 7 to 8 in lane 2. They're both here. The kids are at home with a babysitter. I can simply now complete check-in. Click Submit. So again, from the check-in perspective, from the administrator perspective, you've got a system that is very easy to use, both when working on behalf of your members or simply doing front desk check-in. That about concludes it for the new reservation system. Certainly let us know if you have other questions, comments, or feedback. We certainly appreciate your time.